Okay, so you found something that you really want to learn about.
Something you're just a little bit obsessed with even.
Yeah, like totally fascinated by, and you want to like get to the heart of it.
Right.
You don't want to like spend months reading about it or watching every YouTube video on it.
No.
You just want the good stuff,
Right.
just the real meat and potatoes.
Right.
Well, you've come to the right place.
That's what we do.
That's what this deep dive is all about. And today, someone sent us a great topic, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, this will be a good one.
We are going to be talking about the nutritional theories of Rheo H. Blair.
Oh, Rheo Blair.
Now, for those who aren't familiar with the name Rheo H. Blair, he was a hugely influential figure, particularly in what is often called the golden era of bodybuilding.
Right.
This was like the time of, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah.
Frank Zane, Sergio Oliva.
Franco Columbi.
Yeah, all those guys. And it was a time when people were really starting to understand the importance of nutrition in bodybuilding. And Rheo H. Blair was kind of at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
And our guide for this deep dive is an excellent report by Russ McDermott called Rheo H. Blair and the Secrets of Bodybuilding Nutrition .pdf.
.pdf.
This is a fantastic resource.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's helped us pull together kind of all the disparate sources of information on Rheo H. Blair.
Yeah, a lot of his writings have been lost over the years, unfortunately. So this report is kind of like one of the best sources that we have on.
So who was Rheo H. Blair? Well, he was actually born Irvin Johnson in 1921. And believe it or not, his initial passion was music.
Really?
He was a trained vocalist.
Wow, that's...
But life took a bit of an unexpected turn, as it often does. And he faced some health challenges, which led him to weight training. And crucially, to exploring nutrition.
Right.
And it was in this area of nutrition that he really left his mark. So by the late 1940s, Irvin Johnson had actually transformed his own physique enough to win a bodybuilding contest.
Wow.
In Chicago.
Nice.
And he actually owned a successful gymnasium in Chicago as well.
So he was already pretty accomplished, even before he kind of got into the nutrition side of things.
Yeah, he was doing well. He was a successful gym owner. He was training physique champions. But he began to realize that nutrition was the key to really maximizing your bodybuilding potential.
Absolutely.
And so he really dove deep into it. He consulted with nutritionists. He experimented extensively on himself and on the bodybuilders that he was working with.
So like a real hands-on approach.
Yeah, very much so.
Not just theoretical. He was actually trying things out.
Yeah, he was all about that empirical evidence.
Yeah.
And this led to his first protein powder.
Oh, okay.
Which was called high protein.
High protein.
Which he launched in 1950.
Wow, that's pretty early.
Yeah, that's way back. And he marketed it through Iron Man magazine. Which, at that time was kind of the leading bodybuilding publication.
Yeah, one of the originals.
Yeah, now this initial version of his protein powder was soy-based.
Soy-based, okay.
And it seems like, from what we can tell, that he wasn't totally satisfied with the results he was getting.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So just a year later, in 1951, he published Irvin Johnson's Scientific Bodybuilding and Nutrition course.
Okay.
And this course outlined...
So this is before he changed his name?
Yes, this is still
Irvin Johnson.
Irvin Johnson.
Okay.
And this course outlined his early theories on exercise and nutrition. And this really helped to broaden his influence beyond just, the local Chicago scene.
Makes sense.
And even in these early writings, we can see some of his unique ideas.
Okay.
Starting to take shape, for instance, he was already advocating for eating 6 smaller meals throughout the day.
Oh, interesting.
Rather than...
More frequently.
Yeah, rather than the more conventional, 3 larger meals.
Right. And the report actually gives us a glimpse into one of his early daily meal plans.
Yes, it does.
From that 1951 course.
It's quite specific.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So for breakfast, he recommended eggs, ham, or bacon.
Okay.
A high protein drink.
So he's already using his own protein powder.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And a pretty substantial collection of supplements.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Formula 6 vitamin and mineral tablets and a significant number of Hepro tablets.
Hepro tablets. I'm not familiar with that one.
We'll talk about Hepro in a little bit.
Okay.
So even early on, you can see that supplementation was a key part of...
A big part of his approach.
Yeah. And that was just breakfast.
Right.
Throughout the day, the plan also included mid-morning and mid-afternoon snacks.
Okay.
Lunch, supper, and even a mid-evening snack.
Wow, he's eating a lot.
Yeah.
All the time.
He's eating a lot. And it was very structured.
Yeah.
You know, it was very regimented.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And these meals and snacks often included more high protein.
Okay.
Proto, which was a liquid amino acid.
Proto.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Cheese, meat, vegetables, fruit.
So he's not totally against, like, you know, carbohydrates and things?
No, no. Oh. And those same supplements, you know, Formula 6.
Yeah.
The vitamin and mineral tablets, the Hepro tablets.
So it sounds like even back then he was kind of thinking holistically about nutrition.
Yeah, yeah, very much so.
Not just about protein, but also vitamins and minerals.
Yeah, he was thinking about, you know, the whole package. And it's really insightful to see this early reliance on supplements.
Yeah.
You know, because in the early 1950s, the supplement industry was...
Isn't what it is today.
Nothing like it is today.
Yeah.
So besides high protein and proto, he also had this Hepro supplement, which was described as being about 85% easily digestible protein with all the essential amino acids.
Okay, interesting.
He had his multiple vitamin and mineral tablets, which had 24 different nutrients.
Wow. As
well as yeast and liver.
Okay.
And then there was this Formula 6.
Formula 6.
Now, we don't know exactly what was in Formula 6.
Really?
Yeah. The ingredients are a bit of a mystery.
Okay.
But the author of the report speculates that it might have been an essential fatty acid supplement.
Oh, interesting.
Which would have been quite forward-thinking.
Yeah, for that time?
For that time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you can already see he's kind of ahead of the curve.
Yeah, yeah, very much so.
In a lot of ways.
So then we fast forward a little bit
to
the late 1950s.
Okay.
And Johnson makes a pretty significant move. He moves to Hollywood.
To Hollywood.
Yeah. What prompted that?
Well, he actually closes his successful Chicago gym.
Wow.
To dedicate himself entirely to the nutrition side of bodybuilding. So he's going all in on the nutrition.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done with the gym. Yeah. I'm going to focus on this.
That's a big commitment.
It is a big commitment.
To close a successful business.
Yeah.
To follow your passion.
Yeah, and this move to Hollywood was really pivotal.
Okay.
Because it was in Hollywood that he developed his famous milk and egg protein supplement.
Okay.
Which is called Johnson's Protein Food.
Johnson's Protein Food.
Yeah. And this stuff, by all accounts, was really remarkable.
Oh, yeah.
Bodybuilders who used it experienced significant gains in lean muscle mass without the accompanying increase in body fat.
That's the holy grail right there.
That's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
Right? And it wasn't just Johnson, you know, touting the benefits of his own product.
Right.
Vince Gironda, who was a legendary and often outspoken figure in bodybuilding.
Oh, yeah.
He enthusiastically endorsed it.
Wow.
He sold it through his own gym.
So he must have really believed in it.
Yeah.
If Vince Gironda's selling it, you know, it's got to be good.
Yeah. So that kind of endorsement, coupled with the results that people were seeing, really drew bodybuilders from all over to Johnson's nutrition program.
Okay.
Including a young Larry Scott.
The legend Larry Scott.
Who went on to become...
Mr. Olympia.
The first
Mr. Olympia.
Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
And so the success that he was achieving with these top-tier bodybuilders really cemented his reputation as a leading nutritional authority in bodybuilding.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then in 1965, Irvin Johnson became Rheo H. Blair.
Okay, so that's when the name change happened.
That's when the name change happened.
Okay.
And there's this great story about a numerologist.
A numerologist.
Yes, suggesting the name change.
Oh, wow.
To incorporate more R sound.
More R sounds.
Yeah, so that the name would roll off the tongue better.
Yeah.
But the report also kind of suggests a more practical rationale. Maybe he just felt that Rheo H. Blair sounded more distinctive.
More catchy.
Yeah, more commercially appealing.
Right.
Than Irvin Johnson.
It does have a ring to it.
Yeah.
Rheo H. Blair. Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of fits with his personality, too.
Yeah, and it kind of went along with the, you know, the increasingly flamboyant public persona that he was cultivating.
A bit of a character, it seems like.
Yeah, he was a character. And by the late 1970s, he had an office near Universal Studios.
Okay.
And he was working with a much wider range of clients, including motion picture and television personalities.
Oh, wow. So he was working with celebrities.
Yeah. And prominent business figures.
Right.
For example, the tennis player Bobby Riggs.
Bobby Riggs, yeah.
Was reportedly taking over 400 supplement capsules a day.
What?
During his matches.
400 capsules?
Which is just insane.
That's a lot of capsules.
Yeah, it's a lot of capsules.
But it really kind of underscores Blair's approach to supplementation.
Yeah, he was a big believer.
Huge believer.
In supplements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just athletes. His clients also included Lawrence Welk.
Lawrence Welk?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And Liberace.
Liberace.
Yeah.
Okay, so a pretty wide range of clients.
He was making a big impact.
Yeah.
Sadly, Blair passed away in 1983.
Okay.
At the age of 62.
That's pretty young.
Yeah, he was only 62.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a significant portion of his personal papers were destroyed after his death.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
So we've lost a lot of his...
Yeah, we've lost a lot of his writings, a lot of his formulas.
Yes, his knowledge.
A lot of his insights, which is why these sources that we have, his 2 publications, his articles in bodybuilding magazines, particularly Iron Man, are so valuable.
Yeah, those are like gold.
Yeah, they're incredibly valuable. So, okay, let's dive a little deeper into the core of his approach.
Okay, let's do it.
What exactly was in this famous Blair protein that made it so distinctive?
Yeah, what made it so special?
Yeah.
Well, the report actually gives us a detailed ingredient list.
Okay.
The primary components were calcium and sodium caseinate, which are milk-derived proteins from non-fat dry milk.
Okay.
Along with lactalbumin, which is egg white protein.
Okay.
And dried whole eggs.
Okay.
So it also included iron phosphate and natural vanilla flavoring.
Interesting.
Initially, it was sweetened with cyclamate, which is an artificial sweetener.
Right.
But when that was later banned, due to some safety concerns, it was briefly offered unsweetened.
Okay.
Before a fructose-sweetened version was introduced.
Interesting.
And nutritionally, a quarter-cup serving contained approximately 102 calories, 17.5 grams of protein, 7 grams of carbohydrate, and a very small amount of fat, less than a gram.
Okay, so how did that compare to the other protein powders that were available at the time?
Right, that's a good question. Well, there were 3 crucial distinctions that the report highlights.
Okay.
First was the specific processing method that Blair used.
Okay.
He utilized a special low-heat vacuum process to precipitate the protein in its undenatured form.
Okay.
This was vital because it helped preserve more of the protein's natural nutritional value during manufacturing.
Okay.
And also resulted in a protein powder that tasted better.
Right, because we know that heat can damage the structure of protein.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can reduce its effectiveness.
Yeah.
So Blair was very particular about using this low heat processing technique.
And it seems like this was unique to Blair.
Yeah. From what we can tell, nobody else was doing this at the time.
Interesting. Okay, so what was the second key difference?
The second key difference was the primary protein sources he used.
Okay.
Milk and eggs.
Milk and eggs.
Yeah.
Now, those are common today.
Right.
In protein powders.
Exactly.
But back then.
Yeah, back in the 50s and 60s.
They weren't.
A lot of protein powders were based on soy.
Okay. Which was a more cost-effective option.
Right.
Or even on meat byproducts.
Okay.
And Blair actually experimented with both of these. But he ultimately concluded that milk and egg protein was superior.
Interesting.
For building muscle.
Okay. So what was his reasoning behind that?
His rationale was primarily based on what he termed biological usefulness.
Biological usefulness.
Yeah, essentially this refers to the percentage of the protein you consume that your body can actually digest, absorb, and then utilize to build and repair muscle tissue rather than simply excreting it.
Right, okay.
So he cited figures indicating that eggs had a biological usefulness of around 94%.
Okay.
And milk around 90%.
Okay.
Whereas granular meats were significantly lower at about 77%.
Okay.
And importantly, he also supported these figures with his own observations of bodybuilders who were following different dietary approaches, noting significantly better muscle growth in those who primarily used milk and egg-based programs.
So it's not just about how much protein you eat.
It's about the quality of the protein.
How much your body can actually use.
Exactly.
Okay, so what was the third key difference?
The third key difference was Blair's emphasis on the natural balance of calcium and phosphorus found in milk and eggs for muscle development. He argued that meat products had a less favorable ratio, containing too much phosphorus relative to calcium, which he believed could lead to negative effects like anxiety and fatigue.
Yeah, the phosphorus jitters.
What he famously referred to as phosphorus jitters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he believed that the ideal ratio was 2 parts calcium to every 1 part of phosphorus.
2-to-1 calcium to phosphorus.
Yeah.
And the report points out that 3 ounces of his protein provided approximately 1,100 milligrams of calcium and 675 milligrams of phosphorus.
Okay.
Which closely aligns with his preferred 2-to-1 ratio.
Right.
Now, while modern science doesn't place as much emphasis on this exact ratio for muscle growth as Blair did,
right, it definitely highlights his meticulous and somewhat unconventional approach to balancing nutrient intake.
Yeah, he was very specific about that.
Yeah, very specific.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about those 3 main differences, but there's also something else that was present in Blair's protein.
Yeah.
That's often omitted from many modern protein powders.
That's right, and that is lactose.
Lactose.
The natural sugar found in milk.
Okay, so Blair was not a big proponent of carbohydrates in general.
No, he generally wasn't.
But he considered lactose to be essential.
He does.
For promoting muscular growth.
He really believed in lactose.
Yeah, and that's kind of surprising.
Yeah.
Considering how popular low-carb and even lactose-free protein options are today.
Right. It's definitely a bit counterintuitive.
Yeah. So what was his reasoning behind emphasizing lactose?
Well, he viewed lactose as chemically distinct from other carbohydrates and observed that it digests much more slowly than plant-based carbohydrates. He believed it played several crucial roles in the body, promoting the production of B vitamins in the lower digestive tract, supporting the growth of beneficial bacteria in the gut, aiding in the absorption of calcium, and most importantly, acting as what he called a protein sparer.
A protein sparer. Okay, what does that mean?
So in the absence of a sufficient amount of carbohydrates for energy, the body will turn to breaking down protein to meet its energy needs.
Right.
Blair's theory was that the lactose present in his protein could provide a significant portion of those energy requirements.
Okay.
Thereby preventing the body from converting valuable protein into carbohydrates.
Okay.
And allowing that protein to be used for its primary purpose, building and repairing lean muscle tissue.
So the lactose was sparing the protein.
Exactly. The lactose essentially spared the protein from being used as an energy source.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of counterintuitive.
It is.
Given, how we think about things today.
Yeah.
But that was his theory.
Right. Now, the report also notes that the lactose content in his protein often made it more difficult for some people to digest.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say that because lactose...
It can be tough on the stomach.
Yeah, a lot of people have trouble with it.
Yeah, and Blair's students famously relied on hydrochloric acid and peptin capsules.
Okay.
Sometimes taking as many as 5 or 6 with each meal.
Wow.
To help their bodies digest the lactose-rich protein.
Okay.
The author of the report even suggests that this significant lactose content, despite the digestive challenges it posed for some, might have been a critical factor in the overall success of Blair's nutritional program.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it really underscores his belief in the benefits of lactose for muscle growth.
Yeah, he really thought it was important.
He did.
So Blair's approach wasn't solely focused on protein, though, was it?
No, it wasn't.
The report also emphasizes the importance of cream and fats in his overall program.
Absolutely. Cream and fats played a key role in Blair's system.
Okay, so he was a big experimenter, right?
Oh, yeah, constantly experimenting.
Yeah.
Always trying to refine his methods.
And one of his key goals was to formulate his protein supplement to closely resemble human mother's milk.
Interesting.
Which is naturally quite high in saturated fat.
Right.
And he believed that cream, along with egg yolks, provided the best and most readily usable sources of saturated fat.
Saturated fat?
Yeah.
Okay.
For his program.
Interesting.
So why saturated fat? Why was he so big on saturated fat?
Well, his theory was that saturated fat essentially had the effect of wrapping the protein molecules, which would slow down the digestion process and make the protein available to the body over a longer period of time.
Okay, interesting.
Now, interestingly, the report mentions a 1997 study that found a link between higher intakes of saturated and monounsaturated fats and higher testosterone levels.
Okay.
While Blair obviously wasn't aware of this specific scientific research at the time, his dietary approach, which was high in saturated fats from cream and egg yolks, and also included monounsaturated fats from his Soybro capsules containing germ oils, certainly aligns with these findings. The author of the report even concludes that Blair's diet was effectively anabolic in its effects.
Anabolic.
Yeah, even before that term was widely used in that context.
Right.
So Blair was really ahead of his time in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
So when we put all this together, what were the fundamental components of the successful Blair program?
Well, drawing from the evidence we've discussed, the core elements appear to be a properly manufactured, undenatured milk and egg protein supplement, which would naturally contain casein whey and the egg protein itself.
Right.
The inclusion of a significant amount of lactose. A substantial intake of saturated fats primarily sourced from cream and egg yolks. A source of monounsaturated fats. And a very limited intake of other carbohydrates beyond the lactose present in the protein. The report also suggests that based on current nutritional knowledge, incorporating other essential fats like those found in flax oil or a blended oil like Udo's perfected oil blend could offer additional benefits.
Okay, so this is a very specific and quite unique nutritional blueprint.
It is.
So how did top bodybuilders actually implement this program in their daily life?
Right.
Was it a very strict and inflexible regimen?
Well, the report makes it clear that Blair's program wasn't a rigid one-size-fits-all system. Both Blair himself and his many successful students were constantly experimenting with and adapting the core principles to suit their individual needs and how their bodies responded. However, there was a common method for consuming the protein supplement. Typically, they would mix about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of the protein powder with 1/2 to 1 full cup of heavy cream. Often, they would add a small amount of dietetic fruit or Blair's own flavoring extracts to improve the taste. This created a thick pudding-like consistency.
That they would consume several times throughout the day, usually 3 to 5 times, depending on their size and overall caloric requirements. Some individuals preferred a thinner consistency and would opt to mix the protein with half and half or even whole milk. So there was some flexibility there.
Yeah, so what about Rheo Blair himself? What did he eat?
Well, his daily routine typically included consuming that protein and cream mixture about 5 times a day.
5 times a day?
Yeah. Though he used a slightly smaller amount of protein, around 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup, and mixed it with both cream and milk. He also ate 4 eggs every day.
4 eggs? Every day?
Prepared using his specific low-heat method.
Right, the $1,000 method.
The $1,000 method. And then had 4 or 5 regular solid food meals per week. These meals usually consisted of turkey lamb or beef, with a very minimal amount of fruits or vegetables, perhaps just a slice or 2 of tomato. So he wasn't a big vegetable guy?
Yeah, not really.
Okay.
He focused mainly on protein and fat.
Yeah, so tell me more about this $1,000 method for cooking eggs.
Yeah, so it was a low-heat cooking method that Blair believed was effective in killing any harmful bacteria present in the eggs while also preserving their full nutritional value. He famously told Iron Man writer Howard Sanford Young that he considered this particular secret to be worth $1,000.
Wow.
But he generously shared it with all of his students free of charge.
That's nice of him.
Yeah, he was very generous with his knowledge.
Yeah.
So the method involves carefully simmering the eggs in their shells.
Okay.
In water that is maintained between 180 and 185 degrees Fahrenheit for a period of 25 minutes.
Okay, very specific.
Very specific, yeah.
So we have this basic framework of the program, but the elite bodybuilders clearly made adjustments.
They did.
Can you give us some specific examples?
Yeah, sure.
Of how people like Larry Scott adapted it?
So Larry Scott, who, as we mentioned earlier, attributed a significant portion of his success to Blair's nutritional guidance, would typically consume 3 protein meals each day.
Free?
Yeah.
Okay.
For these, he used a larger quantity of protein, about 2/3 of a cup. Mixed with a full cup of cream and a cup of milk.
Wow.
In addition to this, he would have 3 regular meals consisting of lean meat and cottage cheese, keeping his carbohydrate intake very low.
Okay.
And he also included 3 eggs in his daily diet, prepared either raw or using Blair's special low-heat method.
Raw eggs?
Raw eggs, yeah.
Wow.
He famously stated that he believed 80% of his bodybuilding success was due to the Blair nutritional program.
80%?
80%. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, he really believed in it.
Wow. Okay, what about Gable Paul Boudreau?
Gable Paul Boudreau.
His approach sounded particularly intense.
Yeah, his approach was quite extreme.
Yeah.
He was known for consuming very